On the golf course and in life, you see a common thread with Bob, and that is he's constantly wishing to do better.
Bob is a great listener, but he will have no problem telling you what he thinks after he's listened to everybody's comments.
The three things that matter most to him in life: his family, his company, and his community.
Bob's a guy who's quiet in his demeanor. He's measured. His brain is working at 100 miles an hour all the time.
I don't think I've ever heard him swear. He might have said gee whiz once or something, or drat, perhaps.
If you want to get the most out of your resources, you want to get the job well done, the first call you would make is to Bob Lowe.
One of the key reasons for my dad's success in life, and particularly in business, has been his unflappability.
Well, he's not always unflappable, I can say that for sure.
One of the important things about going to Stanford and getting my MBA there was the quality of your peers. What I learned from my peers there has been important to me from the day I left. When I was at Stanford, I got thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, and I was attracted to real estate for several reasons. One, my dad was in the business as a mortgage lender, mortgage banker. But perhaps more important, I decided I wanted to deal in a career that I was working with a tangible product, something that you could work on and it would be there after you're done working on it, and you could add some creativity to it.
We have over $5 billion of assets under management now. It includes hospitality assets for about half of that, office assets for roughly a third, and then a growing amount of multifamily and retail.
There's a reserve in Indian Wells, California, 450-acre project that my partners and I had the good fortune of developing about 15 years ago. Was really fun because we started out with a parcel in the desert that most people couldn't envision ever being a residential community. And it came to fruition as a really terrific private golf course with 240 wonderful home sites and now 250 terrific members. Terranea was one of the more recent projects we've completed. And I remember walking the 100 acres that were really in a disastrous condition as we were buying it, and talking with Rob and Mike and saying, you know, you don't get an opportunity many times in a lifetime to take 100 acres sitting on this point in the Pacific in the middle of 20 million people. We just can't mess this one up. We got to do it right.
The bank went under and stopped funding on his construction loan, and so then he scrambled to hold it together, find other financing, get it completed, which it was completed on time and on budget.
I had the opportunity to appoint an independent director, and Bob Lowe joined us in the early 90s. Thanks to Bob Lowe, we grew from $400 million revenue business with a staff of about 4,000 to today 45,000 employees doing $8 billion of revenue.
We acquired the Howard Hughes Center, a massive development, master planned project. If you drive down the 405 today, you will see how Lowe Enterprises, and Bob particularly, and his team were involved in the master planning of that project, were involved in the construction of the high-rise buildings throughout the project.
Not an iconic project, but one that is very, very important to me is our very first project. When we started our company in 1972, we had the opportunity to acquire 6 or 7 acres in downtown Aspen, Colorado. And we developed the Gantt, a 143-unit condominium project that we still operate today on behalf of the owners.
He sold those units in the early days for like $100,000. Today those units, I'm told, sell for $1 million to $4 million each.
My big focus right now is the Los Angeles Metropolitan YMCA that I've had the honor to be on the board for some 20 years. I'm sharing an effort to raise another $30 million of new endowment for the YMCA of Metropolitan Los Angeles that would be strictly to support our efforts in the urban communities.
Bob was the chair of the board at Claremont McKenna College in the late 90s, early 2000s, and during that time we went through a presidential transition. And like most colleges and universities, those were very risky times for the organization. Bob was the calm captain of the ship in a storm through that period of time. And if it wasn't for Bob's leadership, it would have been a much rockier transition.
I think the thing that Bob is most proud of, actually, is not his accomplishments, not his history as an Eagle Scout, but the fact that he's been able to get each of his grandkids on the floor of Congress to see a vote take place, to see how government works. That's how Bob works. That's how he thinks.
It's amazing to me to watch his reach politically, whether it's in Washington, D.C., with the senators, the congressmen, or whether it's the state of California, an elected official. He really cares.
We started going to the Gant when I was about 5 years old on family vacation. There were a lot of people that would like to go skinny dipping in those days. And so I remember that, him feeling like he was, responsible for the property, even though we were there on vacation with the family. He would get up in the middle of the night, it seemed like just about every night, and have to throw the skinny dippers out of the hot tub.
He drove me to an office building where he was going to pick up a paper that was being typed that he had written for college. And he drove about 1 block in the middle of Glendale and stopped and pulled out the ring. He had actually gone to pick up the ring, and he couldn't wait any longer than a block. So it was a very unromantic place where he asked me to marry him.
My brother and I were young, and we were on a family vacation in Hawaii, and the phone rang, and he disappeared for 5 minutes, came back and reported our multi-million-dollar condominium project in Palm Desert had burned to the ground. And his response was, "Well, boys, time for a Mai Tai."
Bob and I agreed that it would be much better for us to hire each other's sons in our companies as interns. We did this, and my son Rick came to work at Lowe, and I hired later on Rob and Mike. Now, as it turns out, 30+ years later, Rick is still here at Lowe, and Mike and Rob are co-presidents at Lowe. So I don't know whether Bob could foresee this or whether this is just something that would have happened.
Bob's success, in my estimation, his legacy, if you will, is that he always has been committed to creating value, tangible, measurable value.
I think he'd like to be remembered as someone who was kind and industrious. He'd like to feel that people felt he had made a difference.
What greater legacy than to have 2 of your own children now being so intimately involved in not only the present but the future of the company. Bob's legacy is also throughout Southern California and elsewhere. Bob was chairman of the Real Estate Roundtable, the singularly most important real estate organization.
I would like for people to remember me as someone who did what I said I was going to do, for someone that dealt with people around him in a fair way, and number one, a person that did put his family first. And you look back, if you didn't spend the time to nurture and love your family, everything else wouldn't be important. And that's more clear to me today than ever before.